The JLR interview series.
Okay, so it's Thursday afternoon, 8th of March, and it's just after 3 p.m. And today I'm at the Premises Studio in Hackney, on Hackney Road, which is very nice. And I've got a very talented singer and writer with us today. Her name is Irene Serra.
Irene Serra.
Okay, Irene, I should have checked with you beforehand.
That's okay.
Okay, so welcome to Jazz London Radio.
Thank you very much for having me.
Now, for those regular listeners will know that I've been playing Irene's music quite a lot over the last couple of years, featuring it in different slots on classic jazz and female vocalists and things like that. So I thought it would be fun to interview her, mainly because I was privileged to see her perform recently. This was at the Elgar Room in the Royal Albert Hall. That's correct, yeah. That was at the beginning of February. So can you tell us about that, because it was quite an interesting night. There were visuals and all sorts of different things going on.
Yeah, I think sort of when I got that gig, I decided that the idea of having visuals has been something that's been that I've been thinking about since sort of the inception of the band. And so when I went to check out the hall that we were going to play in, and I saw that they could obviously cater for visuals, I thought, okay, let's get the visuals together. And I worked on the visuals with a one of my best friends, Carolina, who was also part of a lot of our music videos. So she kind of curated the visuals for that, which I thought worked really well with the band and with the performance.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a taster that I wanted to see if it worked. But I think the next step would be to sort of somehow create the element of improvisation within the visuals as well. I think that's in the far future. So to actually have someone triggering live visuals, I mean that would be, I guess, my ideal. And so they're reacting to the music.
Oh, I see. Because just to explain, it was a combination of, as you say, your music videos, but like animation. Quite an interesting combination.
Yeah, so Paper Doll is actually one of our videos. So that was the animation that you saw. That was edited, but there was also other visuals which were Carolina's own work, which she based on sort of movement. So there was water, there was I think 3 dancers. So there was also that element, and then she kind of did a medley, which is what you saw in the background of when we were performing. Yeah.
And so that gig that took place on I think it was the 1st of February, wasn't it? That was to showcase. Obviously, you had a new single that's coming out called Paper Doll. But also, you said it was part of a series or something like that? Yeah,
so I mean, the Royal Albert Hall, the Elgar Room, basically does a series, I think, twice a year, and uses that room for a series called Late Night Jazz, and the series always have a theme. So that particular theme, so the next gigs that are coming up as well, it was Women in the Hall, so they're all female musicians, basically, of which I was one of them as well.
Oh, so quite privileged to...
Very exciting year to sort of, to be a woman and to be I think, a musician.
Yeah, and today, of course, is International Women's Day.
Yes.
So we've got something planned for later on. Lots of music by women, so that'll be good. So so the other thing I was going to ask you about. So you got this new single coming out. So is that going to be part of a record or an album that's going to be coming out in the future?
So Paper Doll, that's definitely the idea. I think we're moving towards a little bit of a different sound, which obviously happens as our music grows and time goes on. I think the first album we released was 2012, and I think the first rehearsal I ever had, when we got the band together, was 2010. So we are sort of 8 years down from that. That's quite a long time. Yeah, different sounds. We're just we're taking our time a little bit more with it, trying other sounds, even from a production point of view. I think it's going to be a little bit more of a conceptual album, this third one. So with the idea that Paper Doll will be part of the album, definitely, but we also want to leave options open and see where we are sort of next year, or I think we're going to release it possibly at the beginning of next year, I think.
Right, okay. So a concept record.
Yeah.
It's funny you should say that, because on the weekend I was at the London Bass Guitar Show in Kensington, Olympia, and I interviewed actually not officially interviewed, I had a chat with a couple of bass players, and they both said they got albums coming out, and they were telling me it's a concept album.
Concept album.
So I said to one of them, I said, well, is this like the period of concert albums? And now you're saying you got a concert
I think, yeah, because it's the period of sort of singles, and so the idea of albums is a little bit, or at least in these last few years, has a little bit left, I think the main platform, because people just buy loads of singles. Yeah, it's not really about albums anymore.
No.
And I think at least in jazz and sort of more niche genres, if I can call them that. I don't think jazz is a niche genre, but I think people a little bit, are coming back to, let's do this as a piece of work.
Yeah.
With a theme. At least that's how I kind of wanted to do that this time round, because I suppose that's where I am at the moment with my composition.
Yeah.
And I want it to all segue together.
Yeah. Okay.
To be different pieces of music, but one general. Also, one must think of it as one general piece of music.
Okay. As you say that, I'm thinking, because the first two albums, CD set that I have, what I find is your music, it's quite identifiable. I feel like there's many artists today, it's difficult to know who's who. But I think with your music, Susie Hare, it sounds like it's you.
Great.
And your band. But also, the tracks follow a certain pattern as well. They fit. You don't have a record where one is out of sync.
With the other ones.
Yeah. So you're quite meticulous in your preparation.
Yeah, I think all four of us, we're all kind of very. I don't want to say individual musicians because that sounds really poncy, but we're kind of quite true to what we do. We're all very different in our own styles. John can play everything, but he has his own flamenco quintet, and Richard has played all sorts of music from country, and he still does country to blues to jazz to pop. Chris, fabulous jazz drummer, very into his drum and bass. He has his own electronic project, which is just himself on drums.
Yeah.
And synthesizers and all sorts of things. So I think we're quite identifiable musicians in general, and then when we come together, and then when the music is written, it's either a co-write between me and Chris, or Richard and I, or my own compositions, that comes across.
Yeah.
I don't think we ever try to be anything that we're not.
No, okay.
And I think that's really helped the albums have an identity, like you said. Because a few other people have said, and it's really one of the greatest compliments you can give me.
Oh, good.
I like it to come across quite natural.
Yeah.
Like, this is me.
Yeah.
It or not like it, but...
Yeah. And also, sort of the topics that you choose to write, it's kind of like real life situation, affairs of the heart, things like that. Is more or less
it's very personal.
Not politics or anything like that.
This album is a little bit different. So much has happened sort of in the last 2-3 years politically and personally, that I think, living in London, I think you can almost you can't distance yourself from that anymore.
No.
But always sort of based on personal experiences, I must say. That's how I write.
And that comes through in your videos as well, doesn't it, I think?
Yeah, I'm lucky. I have a lot of very beautiful artist friends who always help me out with the visuals, the photographs, and the videos. And so I think they know me, and they really listen to me. And I have very strong ideas about what I want, still giving it, the other artists the freedom to do their own thing. But I kind of, I know that at least the emotion that I want to convey in the visuals or the videos.
Yeah, okay. Just wanted to ask you a bit about, how you got into music and playing and things like that and singing.
Okay. Well, I grew up in Denmark.
Okay.
Even though I'm Italian.
Oh, you are Italian.
I am Italian. Irene Serra is quite an Italian name. I grew up in Denmark, and they thankfully, we went to an English school there, and they had an amazing music program, as do lots of English schools, and I had really great music teachers, sort of, since sort of primary school. So that really encouraged me to, learn music, and I think I had a stint on violin and piano. We had a piano at home, so we all had to take piano lessons, and I was always singing. Singing was like the thing that I had to do, and I went to tell my mother that I had to do, and I would sing at every dinner party, unfortunately, for my parents. And then I kind of always knew that this was what I wanted to do. So I had already planned ahead that when I finished sort of high school, I would come to the UK and study music and to sort of base, I guess, my career here. I was very clear about that. I didn't really understand how it was all going to come together, but I knew a few key factors.
Yeah, well, that's nice. When you're that young, you got a vision what you want to do, because obviously some of the young people don't have that, and then you could stumble on something, or you might never stumble on what you want. So it's good.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm quite a stubborn and determined person anyway, and I think there was one musician in my family, I think, and I've just discovered there was another one, but sort of far back, so nobody was doing music. So I kind of, in a way, that was good for me because I had to assert myself. Do you get what I mean? If there had been music around, and I wouldn't have had to kind of want to do it quite as much and have to ask my parents. I mean, I think we would have all played the piano, my parents were keen on us having some sort of musical education, but not quite to the level that I wanted. So because there was no music around me besides my mother, who loved sort of Frank Sinatra and Mina, I felt that I had to be even more vocal about it.
Okay. So then you came to England, you studied? Yeah,
and then I came to the UK and I did a first degree, which was sort of dance, drama and music. I was really into my dancing and choreography particularly, which is why I dance in my videos as well, or at least in one of them. And then I kind of decided that I just wanted to do music, so I studied at Goldsmith.
Goldsmith,
I did, a certificate and diploma in music, and then I got into the Guildhall and I did my master's there while I was still working and gigging and trying to figure out what
Wow.
So yeah.
So full on,
and then sort of at the end of the Guildhall, I knew that I was already writing, but I knew that I wanted to have an original band that still contained everything that I loved about jazz, which was sort of improvisation and just great melodies. As a jazz vocalist, you've been singing these incredible melodies and lyrics written by the world's best composer. How are you ever going to top some of those jazz songs? Sometimes I sing in them and I just think, this is incredible that someone wrote something like this. So try to combine them with also just being a singer-songwriter, without having too much to live under the weight of,
Yeah. So I mean, so you've had your band for some time, haven't you? So did you? Yeah. How did that come together? Did you audition or?
No. So we kind of we'd all play together. Richard is the double bass player. We kind of both wanted to do original music, and we had played. I knew John well, and I had played with Chris as well, and Richard had played with Chris quite a lot. And they were the first people that sort of came to mind when we decided that this sort of project was what we really wanted to do. And we just kind of emailed them and were like, guys, this is our idea. You want to come on board? Yeah, okay. And then we I remember still we had our first rehearsal at the Bull's Head, the old Bull's Head, when there was the Yamaha music room in Barnes.
Southwest London, yeah.
Yeah, it's slightly changed now.
Is it?
Yeah.
I've been there for a while.
Yeah, I think it's not in that room anymore, and the grand piano's gone. And I brought, I think This Bird Has Flown. We all brought some. Richard and I had written loads of music that we then didn't use at all. And I had written This Bird Has Flown, which was like a 4-chord vamp. And then we just kind of started playing. And I'm quite, we're quite good at knowing what feels right and what doesn't feel right. So we just go with that.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, and the good thing is that obviously you've been playing together for a long time, so obviously it's something that works, Because, you get some groups where people come and go a lot and things like that. Yeah,
we kind of wanted to get a really nice feel, and I think it's great that we also play with each other, but in different groups as well, so you keep growing, not just as a band member, but...
Well, great. And what about your influences,
So obviously a huge lover of jazz, both vocal and instrumental, a huge lover of Brazilian music, especially Jobim and a lot of that repertoire, singer-songwriters as well, Joyce. Milton Nascimento, I had a brief love affair with him a few years back. I mean, just musical, obviously not physical. And I listened to a lot of sort of pop music of, throughout when pop became pop, sort of 50s up to now, lots of electronic music.
Oh yeah, yeah, you like a lot.
Yeah, I find actually some of the most interesting music nowadays, and also improvised, is perhaps the more electronic, where you can still see improvisation happening on stage more than sort of pop and rock. I find in the electronic world that happens.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear, because I do a lot of electronic stuff, Monday to Saturdays actually, at nights. But having heard your music, it's good that you say that, because it's a different side that I'm hearing here. Yeah. So what about any like musicians or singers from Europe? Because especially being in England, being from London, we tend to kind of ignore. There's lots of really great singers coming out of the continent, but we tend to ignore that over here, because there's such a vibe here, and obviously, we look at the USA as well. So, are there any like singers from Europe that you might mention that?
The problem is it's singing in English, no? Because that will obviously bring you to a lot bigger public. Yeah, there is Maria Piedevito, which is an incredible Italian vocalist from Naples, sort of the Norma Winston. She does a lot of vocal jazz, but it's and then, I guess the Italian jazz scene I'm a little bit out of, but I would say she was definitely a big mention. And I love a lot of the Scandinavian bands, which is kind of where Is grew out of. I listened to EST and I thought they were fantastic. Although he's passed away now, the pianist.
10 years now.
Yeah, so EST was fundamental for me to then be like, oh, this is beautiful music, but these are songs. Which is what they had that was so special. And having grown up in Denmark, and I think Scandinavian jazz is incredible, because they also don't live under this weight of the American jazz. They kind of always did their own thing, because they're not, in the 50s or maybe 40s or 50s, they probably weren't even getting the records that we were getting here in London.
No, I've had this discussion with other people, and I've interviewed quite a few musicians from Scandinavia and Germany. They take out the blues element. It's definitely the folk.
That's true.
Their own
exactly,
folk,
exactly.
which is the influence.
Yeah, I find that massively. And that's why a lot of sort of jazz musicians or jazz vocalists in Scandinavia as well, a lot of the repertoire is sort of the folk tunes of Sweden or Norway, which works fabulously well, because it is improvised you can definitely make it into improvised music. And I also just like their the honesty. There's no pretense to be anything that they're not, and so they're extremely individual. If you even just think of, even in the pop world, some of the most, think of, Iceland isn't Scandinavia, but Björk or Sigur Rós or these kind of artists, because they're not comparing themselves to anything else.
No, well, that's an interesting thing you say, and probably perhaps that's why you've got your own identifiable sound then in that case. Yeah,
growing up, definitely. I wasn't so much part of the music world there, because I left Copenhagen when I was 14, but definitely, a great music scene all over Scandinavia, and
but the influence, the vibe.
Yeah. And also, they're very welcoming of all sorts of music. Obviously, when I was growing up, you used to get all the big pop hits, but then they kind of have their own thing, and there's lots of live music, which I was very similar to the UK. When I went back to Milan, unfortunately, there just seemed to be no live music anymore.
Really?
Yeah, unfortunately, they don't have they used to have a big music culture. Now, with so many other things, that's kind of gone.
Because I was going to ask you about that, actually. Because jazz seems to be quite popular in Italy, the impression I get, but maybe not.
Yeah, no, it is.
I've been to the Umbria Jazz Festival.
Yeah, like everything in Italy. You've got the big names, the big three names, and they kind of keep going on around the circuits, but it's very difficult to make a living. It's very difficult to make a living, I think, in Italy in general, so you can imagine as a jazz musician, you don't have sort of music, the kind of music that you'd have here that's your bread and butter, which is perhaps functions, so private events. Here you often have live music. At weddings, you often have live music. There are venues that are food restaurants that have live music, so because you can't only do the big sort of public gigs, the jazz venues in London. They're the ones that you there's a rotation.
Yeah.
So Italy already doesn't have that. Unfortunately, you know, music programs in school are not very many to almost non-existent.
Oh, really?
So it's just more difficult to access, and there's, you know, all this amazing talent, and also then, you know, you can't identify yourself, because if you don't see musicians when you're growing up who are out there doing it, you can't really view that as a career, can you?
No.
You know, so I was quite lucky to grow up in Denmark and to go to English schools where, you know, you have GCSE music, and it's a vibe. I mean, obviously it's still an art, so people, you know, my parents were like, oh, great. I mean, I think if I'd wanted to be a doctor, they might have been slightly happier. But you can still, you know, fathom it as a career. Yeah.
I mean, we've got a similar discussion going on now, where they're sort of doing the cuts in the schools, cutting the music program, but they're cutting a lot of things now. So it's just getting difficult everywhere, isn't it? Really?
It is difficult everywhere, but I find that the British definitely know how to fight for their arts. Yeah, like and they place, you know, they place such a high value. Maybe, perhaps not this government, definitely not this government, but the British people in general place a high value on arts, you know. And all, you know, in school you will have done drama a little bit, you will have done music, you will have done dance, and so that's, you know, and comparatively, actually, that there is, it's less than there used to be, but I think compared to Italy, there's probably quite a lot more that's given to the arts, which is amazing. Which it's so sad for Italy, because Italy had, you know, when we were at our peak, sort of La Dolce Vita 50s, 60s, I'm talking about, you know, directors and actresses and music. It was absolutely incredible. If you look at any of the old programs on Rai Uno, we used to have these variety shows in the 60s, led by Mina, you know, dancers of an incredible caliber, the choreography, and now... I mean, if you go to Italy, I'd probably just avoid turning the TV on for a lot of things.
No, that's a shame.
But if you know, if you don't invest in the arts,
but you know, you make a good point, because it kind of sums up the British spirit, doesn't it? Because we get things done in spite of.
Of course, but that's actually where art lives, doesn't it? The problem is you need. There can be difficulties and there can be strife, but it still needs to be doable. You know, in Italy, it's basically not doable. I mean, here it's super difficult. But in Italy, you know, in Italy, perhaps you don't even have as many schools, you know, and your network of friends and, you know, other artists. It's just, everything is just a little bit more complicated.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I haven't been to Berlin, but I can imagine this jazz scene in Berlin seems really big now. So
lots of
like
jazz.
A rival to London.
Yeah.
Almost.
Lots of jazz musicians I know moved over there, because then it was super cheap,
Even
and
Americans.
now it's become actually to get expensive, because everybody's moved over there. Yeah, and I think Berlin will always have a little bit more of a wild soul than London, just because Berlin's, but no, I still think London is extremely
London
special.
is still number one.
London is still number one,
Great. So I suppose we better sort of wrap this up. So, you know, what plans have you got for this, you know, rest of this year? We're in March, so we've still got a long way to go.
Yeah, so basically I'm trying to organise sort of a gig quite in the near future, maybe a double bill with a friend of mine. So we're trying to get that together, and we are recording perhaps an EP of our material. So I don't know whether we want to release an EP sort of within this coming year and then the full album next year.
Oh, I see.
Or just this gig can just be like the single launch, because we're releasing a single in a few months. I'm going to Jazz Ahead to just check out. I'm not performing there, but I'm just sort of going there to hopefully meet and greet and to see the European scene more. Yeah. And then hopefully next year have an album launch and the third album. But we're doing it more in stages. We're sort of, you know, releasing singles up to the full album. And I think that's our plan. That's our spreadsheet for now.
Okay. So you got it all mapped out.
Yeah. Things change, but for now, the spreadsheet is that.
Okay, well, I think that's it from me. So really, thanks a lot for the interview, Jazz on the Radio. Really enjoyed chatting with you.
Thank you very much,
You had a lot
Lauren.
of interesting things to tell us. And yeah, good luck for the rest of the year.
Thank you very much. I will keep you posted.
Oh, yeah, please do.
You cut me up in pieces. You try to make no creases I fold to make me light. No silly conversations, red wine and Baudelaire. You cover me with kisses, romance, but I feel bad. These clever words you're speaking, they hold no peace of mind, but still you go on tweaking, intent to make me shine. But soon you'll turn me over, grow tired of my mistakes. You'll see my face reflected in all that you forsake. For I'm your paper doll, relentless through it all. She's such a lucky girl, you'll see. For I'm your paper doll, resplendent till you come. It's always midnight strokes for me. For I'm your paper doll, relentless through it all. She's such a lucky girl, you'll see. For I'm your paper doll, tremendous in my form. I told you not to water me. You hold me up, a lady. To them, I am your prize. These words don't tend to fit me, but I'll try them on for size. All these plastic people and the lies that you adore. This wood will turn to hollow. What are you waiting for? Oh. For I'm your paper doll, relentless through it all. She's such a lucky girl, you'll see. For I'm your paper doll, resplendent till you come. It's always midnight strokes for me. For I'm your paper doll, relentless through it all. She's such a lucky girl, you'll see. For I'm your paper doll, tremendous in my form. I told you not to water me. Don't you water me? Don't you water me? Don't you water me?
The JLR interview series.